Hey guys, and welcome. Today I wanted to focus on a topic that I've thought about for quite a long time after completing the game. One that I've theorised in the past on a community post and, rightly so, got a bit of a mixed reception. That theory is Thor and Faye related in some way or other? I really think there's something in this, and I have a really cool theory to push across to you guys to explain as to why I think this may have happened, how the events transpired to get to the situation we are right now, and ultimately how it all started. But I'm going to present all of the facts that I know and why I think there's something in this theory, and obviously let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Doesn't matter how crazy the theories may sound or be, I'd love for you to leave whatever you think down below in the comments for us to all have a read through and basically dive into this topic in a bit more detail, because as I mentioned, I really think there's something in this, and going into the next game, this could be a massive plot point that we do visit. But of course, leave a like on today's video to be 100% certain that you'll receive everything you've asked Santa for come Christmas, whilst also considering subscribing to the channel as well. That would be an amazing Christmas present that you can give to me. But anyway, without further ado everyone, let's dive in. So, I actually put together a community post and posted this around a week or so ago, and as expected, it got a lot of mixed views on how this could potentially be, and just generally around the theory and some of the points within that, because there are a lot of holes currently within Faye's story. But I'm going to read through it and explain a little bit further into that theory, why I believe this is the case, and then the facts around it that kind of do show this. So let's dive straight in. In God of War 2018, Baldur was sent by Odin to find Faye. At the time, we had no idea as to why. And at the end of 2018, we believed it was because Odin hated the giants, with Faye being a giant. But I don't think that's the case at all. In God of War Ragnarok, Freya mentioned towards the end of the game that she had seen and met Faye before when we were in Vanaheim at the crater, at a time when she didn't wield the leviathan axe. This is really specific here because it was before the time that Faye had met Brock and Sindri to give them the leviathan axe. So what happened before that point? Well, this is exactly where we're going to go into now. Freya was of course married to Odin, and would have been in Asgard very early on after the Vanir-Asier war. That war was brought to a halt because Mimir basically said that, Freya, you should marry Odin, and then bring both of these realms together and stop the fighting. So, Freya was married to Odin, and would have been in Asgard very early on when Thor and Baldur were children, or younger than what they were right now, as Baldur is of course Freya's son, and Baldur and Thor are brothers, and look to be of a very similar age. If Faye is related, she would have been there too, and maybe that's why she seems familiar to Freya. Just a thought I had. Faye could have absolutely hated Odin, her father, or it could be a relative in some way, whether it's an uncle or something like that, because of what of a monster that he was. She may have left Asgard when she became a bit older and fled to Midgard, and it was there this where she met Brock and Sindri, and they gifted her this leviathan axe, this stranger that seemed very, very nice, someone that was only looking to help people, and maybe she helped Brock and Sindri at some point. And maybe she told Brock and Sindri about where she was, of her troubles, of how bad Odin was, and basically said to Brock and Sindri to never speak of this again. And this is where they thought that this would be the best time to give her this leviathan axe, to combat against the Mjolnir that was created and given to Thor by Brock and Sindri. After Faye was gifted the leviathan axe, she could have then decided to journey to Svartalfheim along with Brock and Sindri, or because that Brock and Sindri told her of Odin's power there. So that's when she went to Svartalfheim to find out more around what Odin was doing, and there is where she's seen the state of the realm, and all of the dwarfs being enslaved by Odin. It was there that she met Durlin, and from that point onwards, attempted to form a rebellion against Odin. This may not have worked as Faye or Durlin wanted it to. Potentially she was found out by Odin or the surrounding Asiers, or Odin was potentially disguised as other dwarfs around there. Faye had to leave before she was captured and killed by Odin ultimately, resulting in Odin capturing and torturing Durlin for the information on what happened, and where Faye went, and what they were doing, and that's where he's got the scar on the top of his head. So, Faye went to Vanaheim because she knew that Thor would potentially be there due to this being around the time of the Aesir-Vanir War, so Thor could have been there trying to look for a Vanir camp of some sort, a military camp or whatever that might be, to rather kill them, or because they were now intertwined in terms of Freya and Odin being married, something could have gone on there. Faye must have went there to the crater, or what was some form of town or village beforehand, went into the mead hall where, of course, Thor probably would be, and there he was sat on the table with his axe in hand and a pint of mead in his cup. Faye walks over to Thor, tries to reason with him. Thor does what he normally does, pulls out another cup and pours Faye a drink, but of course I don't think Faye would have touched it, because that's not the reason why she's there. Thor was blinded by Odin. He could not see the bad that he was doing, and the bad that Odin was getting Thor to carry out. Faye was trying her best to get Thor to open his eyes to the fact that Odin was a monster, and ultimately the reason why she had left. But Thor was having absolutely none of it, and this is where they both got enraged. Thor being a drunken mess, which is why in the boss fight with Kratos he mentions that one voice line that this feels familiar, this frozen lightning bolt, because it was the exact same thing that him and Faye made in Vanaheim around the crater. Interesting point there. They completely destroyed the town, the village, and they made this crater in the middle of Vanaheim. And from this point onwards, they went their separate ways, and Faye knew that Thor was too far gone at that point. After Faye's fight with Thor, it was then potentially here that Faye wanted to learn more around her origins, of course being a giant, and with the likes of Tyr being involved as well, and Odin just wanting them all dead. This is where potentially she travelled to Jotunheim and met with the council at the very top on the giant's fingers, as we've seen in the temple at the very start of the game, with Faye painted on the wall with the axe on her back. This could be where she spent a lot of her days and a lot of her time hiding away and just being a big part of the giant's history. And then, when Odin really tried to defeat and kill all of the giants, Tyr was in help to remove this Jotunheim tower and put it in between the realms, and this is where we found it in 2018's game. From that point onwards, that's at the point where Faye could have met Kratos and they started their life and had baby Atreus. An opportunity for Faye to have a new life, to not need to be surrounded or running anymore. This was her chance, and that's exactly what happened. Then one day, Faye died. We don't know how just yet, but we do know obviously that Faye died, with the funeral being at the start of 2018, and Faye marking out the trees in which that she wanted Kratos to burn and use to cremate her when she did pass on. Then, one day, Balder comes knocking at the door. My theory here is that Odin sent Balder because he was Asgard's best tracker. He was sent down here to look for Faye, potentially for a work with the giants, or just to find her and bring her home for everything that she's caused Odin with her being out there trying to stop him. This is why Balder kept alluding to Kratos that he knew what he wanted, whether that was because of Faye being helping the giants, or whether it was because Faye was in fact in Asgard and is related to Odin or Balder in some way. Of course, Kratos knew none of this and probably still doesn't know any of this right now, 2 games in, and maybe they're leaving it to the new mythology to flesh all of this out. This is a theory I put together a while back, and yes, there are some holes in it here and there, like if Faye was also half giant, half god, or half mortal, half giant. But just going off some of the key details here, both Thor and Faye are fair-haired, they both have the same skin complexion, both are giants by nature, both have the same qualities relating to strength as well. Look, Santa Monica really like to be subtle with these things here. We've got to look at everything in this point to really determine what is what here. Like, both being fair-haired, both having the same skin complexion, both having the same strength qualities in other games and stories may not mean anything. But if I know Santa Monica, like you guys probably do as well, this probably does allude to something and teases what's to come. Understandably though, there are a lot of holes in this theory relating to how Faye might be related to Thor in some way. The parts about Balder, how Freya actually met Faye, which again we don't really know too much about, but it would have made a lot of sense if it was back in Asgard, when Freya was married to Odin, and when Faye didn't have the axe on her back, because Freya was very specific about that when talking to Kratos in the crater.
It was Faye who fought Thor in this valley. The gloves. And the fair hair. This warrior reminds me of someone.
What is it?
I once knew a warrior like the one he spoke of. She was extraordinary. I never realized that the warrior could have been Faye.
You met Faye?
She sounds like the woman I knew. She didn't carry that axe, but yes. I believe I may have met her wife.
It seems there's much I never knew about her.
What we have to look at here is the fact that Santa Monica love to hint at things from the future games in their current games and storylines. As an example of what they did in 2018 going into Ragnarok. They hinted that Jormungandr being created by Atreus in a very subtle way. Not that you would know in 2018 that happened, but when we got to Ragnarok, that's when we thought, okay, they mentioned that in the first game. Like when Mimir spoken to Jormungandr in the first game, Jormi mentioned that Atreus looked familiar to him, but he doesn't really know why, and neither did Kratos or Mimir. Then in Ragnarok, we learn more about what actually happened and how he was created, and the dots link up. In Ragnarok, we hear about Faye and Thor fighting in Vanaheim, creating this frozen lightning bolt, having super strength, and things like that. Then in the next game, which is potentially based a lot more around the giants and will have Faye's story potentially fleshed out a bit more. That's where we will learn out exactly who they were, and maybe even go back and see flashbacks of this fight. Or maybe even fight as Faye in the next game to... I just think that would be really, really cool if the developers gave us the chance to do that. I'd be super surprised in the next game if we didn't refer back to Faye at all. I think she will have a huge part to play, along with the giants as well, which are all potentially situated within other geographical locations. But guys, ultimately, what do you think? Are Faye and Thor related in some way? Is Faye originally half giant, half Asier, or half giant, half god? Did she leave Asgard early on, realising what a monster Odin was? And most of all, how the hell did Faye die? Because nobody knows right now. I would love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions on the matter. It's a really interesting topic to discuss because 1, we have no damn idea about Faye at all at this point and who she really was. And 2, why would she keep it all a secret from Kratos and Atreus? There must be a reason behind it, and ultimately it must have been to protect them in some way. But leave your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments section. I'd be very interested to see all of you guys' theories around this. And why not like the video, watch it down there too, and subscribe if you guys are brand new or existing viewer that's coming back to watch the content. And most of all, have a fantastic Christmas period and a happy new year as well to everyone. For those getting the God of War game for Christmas, you will not be disappointed. But everyone, we'll see you all next time.